The opinions expressed by the host and guest on this program are solely their own and do not represent the views or opinions of Blind United. We strive to provide diverse perspectives and discussions on our platform, but the opinions expressed should be understood as personal viewpoints and not reflective of Blind United as an organization.
It's time. It's time for
coffee time.
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 And here is your coffee time crew.
Well, good Wednesday morning, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee Time with Blind United. Of course, I'm Ed, and we got Miss Carol with us this morning. Good morning, Carol.
Good morning, everyone.
And then we got Pedro. How you doing, my brother?
What's up, everybody? Good morning.
All right, so let's jump off into the interest group for the night. We have getting the most out of your Meta Ray-Bans with the Blind United crew. We will be doing some live demonstrations. We worked it out to where George is going to be able to actually have his metas on, and we'll be able to hear him doing the prompting and get the results. We'll hear all of that. So new little feature that George came up with. So, you know, if somebody has an issue, he can basically do the proper prompt and then show them how to do that proper prompt and get the results that they're looking for. So come join us tonight at 6 p.m. for that. That's Pacific time. George being on in El Paso, of course, it's 7 o'clock p.m. for him. So
8 o'clock for me.
Yeah, 8 o'clock. As we go east, it gets later and later. So, but anyway, yeah, come check us out for that, and we'll see what's happening with it. You know what I'm saying? See how this works out, and you know, hopefully we'll be able to help a bunch of people understand how to use their Meta Ray-Bans a little bit easier. So on that note, you heard our disclosure in the beginning of this, right? Always play it. I'm just going to offer it again. You know, this is our opinion. Today is going to, you know, kind of maybe put a few more toes in the water in the political side of things, but it's not necessarily about, you know, telling anybody who to vote for. I mean, he's already been elected. You know, we already know he's been promising to do this, promised to do that, a lot of stuff on day one. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. It's now about the actions that he is taking. It's now about the policies that he is putting forward. And therefore, you know, I want to show the effect that these policies are having on a range of different sectors of, you know, American working folks. So on that note, everybody good this morning before we jump into this stuff?
I'm a little sleepy this morning. Didn't rest very well, but I know I'll get through it.
Well, I mean, hey, sometimes that 924 gets you even when you don't even realize you got it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. You're right. You're
know,
absolutely right.
I mean, again, I've been working on getting my sleep cycle back in shape. It's working pretty good. You know, I'm not waking up at, you know, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning and can't go back to sleep anymore. So I'm getting there.
But that's good. That's positive.
Yeah, I'm getting there. So anyway, you good, Pedro? Everything good with you, my brother?
Yeah, just a little sluggish, you know.
Hump day, my brother, hump day. It's the middle of the week. You know, we're supposed to be on it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so I guess Wednesday, hump day, that's the day our energy starts fading, I guess, in the middle of the week. And
right.
so, but Anyway, so this first one is some stuff, some policies that he's put out, and it's going to show how it's affecting U.S. farmers that grow grain. So let's play this article, and then we'll talk about what's happening with these farmers.
Today on Coffee Time, U.S. grain farmers in crisis, policy shifts, trade tensions, and growing uncertainty. In the rolling fields of America's heartland, a quiet storm is brewing, and it's not the kind you can track on a radar. U.S. grain farmers, the backbone of the nation's agricultural output, are facing mounting pressures from a wave of policy changes and trade tensions introduced by the Trump administration. From tariffs and funding freezes to market disruptions and rising costs, recent developments have created a perfect storm of economic hardship and uncertainty. Let's unpack the key issues and their growing impact. Tariffs that hit close to home. At the center of the crisis are trade policies that were intended to protect American interests, but are instead creating new hurdles for American farmers. One such proposal is a levy of up to $1.5 million per port call on Chinese-built ships entering U.S. ports. While aimed at curbing Chinese influence in maritime trade, these levies could significantly raise freight costs for agricultural exports. That's bad news for farmers shipping staples like wheat, corn, and soybeans abroad. Higher shipping costs make American products less competitive on the global market. Adding to the pressure, countries like China and Canada have responded with retaliatory tariffs of their own. In particular, Canadian tariffs on U.S. barley have disrupted trade routes and revenue streams, leaving farmers in export-heavy regions scrambling for alternative markets. Frozen funds and cut lifelines. Beyond trade, policy shifts have hit farmers at home, too. A freeze on USDA loans and grants has abruptly stalled critical development projects. In Montana, for example, a $648,000 grant intended to support a regional feed mill was halted, impacting a network of 150 organic grain farmers who now face uncertainty heading into a new season. Compounding this are cuts to federal food assistance programs, which have increased food insecurity in vulnerable communities. Many of these programs relied on partnerships with local farmers to supply produce and grains. As funding dries up, not only do families go without, but farmers also lose a reliable source of income. The squeeze gets tighter. The financial consequences are showing up across the board. Commodity prices, especially for wheat, corn, and soybeans, have dropped significantly due to fears of a supply glut and diminished international demand. This drop in prices comes at a time when input costs are rising. Tariffs on key imports like fertilizers have led farmers, particularly in places like Michigan, to reconsider what and how much they plant. Fertilizer-heavy crops are giving way to less demanding alternatives, not by choice, but by necessity. And while the USDA has promised a $10 billion aid package to support struggling farmers, delays in disbursement have left many unable to plan for the upcoming planting season. For farmers operating on tight seasonal margins, the wait is more than inconvenient. It's potentially devastating. A sector in survival mode. All of this has left many in the agricultural sector asking a pressing question: how long can this last? The combination of rising costs, falling prices, disrupted trade, and halted support systems has pushed many small and mid-sized farmers into survival mode. These aren't hypothetical policy outcomes. They're real-world consequences impacting real people, families, and communities. The future of American grain farming depends not just on good weather and solid harvests, but on policy decisions that consider the full picture. As it stands, many feel left behind, caught in the crosshairs of broader political agendas. What do you think? Should agricultural trade policies prioritize domestic producers' financial health over political leverage? How can the government better support farmers facing these challenges? And what should be done to ensure aid reaches farmers before it's too late? Now, back to the Coffee Time crew for their thoughts.
So, in my opinion, I mean, I'm sorry. There should be, and just in my opinion, no tariffs on food products, especially when we're talking about grain and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of people don't realize, like when we did the embargo against Russia, right? We subsidized the farmer because why? We could no longer sell to them, right? So therefore, it took a big chunk out of what the farmers' annual incomes were, right? But then, crazy little side note, due to the subsidies that they were getting from the government, a new sport was born, and a lot of people consider it to be still popular to this day, which is monster trucks. These farmers had all this extra money, they had all that farm equipment and stuff, so they started putting these big tractor axles and all that stuff underneath their trucks with these great big motors, and they were just out there playing around in the fields that they couldn't grow crops in, right? So I mean, that's just a little fun fact, right? But anyway, I mean, again, we want to make sure that there's enough food, not only for us, right? Which it seems that these policies are actually taken away because he's, doing away with other stuff like, SNAP and stuff like that, these other USDA giveaways, where food banks and stuff like that, right? So now the farmers don't have those people to sell to, right? So, I mean, it's cutting even into the American market, with these policies and stuff like that. But I mean, I just think that, again, when it comes to food, I mean, we got a lot of people starving all over the world. That's why I said there should be no tariffs on this type of stuff, especially when, again, it's food, man. Everybody has a right to eat, right? So, but anyway, it's I don't know, these policies that he's doing, man. They're killing the American farmer. I mean, I don't know. Is that part of their plan? I mean, do they want to do away with the family farms and stuff and turn everything into more corporate stuff? And then if we go corporate farms, right? Now, are we going to get good products out of them, or are we going to start getting these genetically modified crops? You know what I'm saying? I mean, we already got a lot of that stuff out there now. I mean, that's not good for our health. That's not, it's just not good. And I just think that's the direction that they're trying to go with it. But anyway, that's my take on it. You want to throw something at it, Carol, or what's your feelings on it?
I mean, I agree with you, Ed, wholeheartedly. It's a lot of people that are starving. And they were talking about barley. I mean, barley is one of the biggest things in alcohol, so that's going to cut into that market as well. People, as far as beer is concerned. So, like you say, a lot of it is genetically modified. I mean, when, my folks were country folks, so it was certain things that came out at certain times of the year. And now you see everything all in the stores all times of the year. And you just can't convince me that they're shipping all of this over on a plane and charging me, say, 89 cents a pound for it. I refuse to believe it. I just can't see them doing that. But I agree. They need to do something quickly.
Uh, quickly. I mean, and again, I get what you're saying about the barley and the beer and stuff like that, but it's also, like you say, the grain, where they make wheat and make flour and make bread. When we talking about soybeans, where there's so much that they do with soybeans nowadays.
Right, right.
All of that stuff is being tariffed. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, again, it's just, and now you're going to charge, just because a ship, and I think there might be a misunderstanding there where they're saying a ship built in China. I think it's more about a flagship for China. They're flying under the Chinese flag.
Ah,
And they come into port, Now they're being charged an exuberant amount of money as a port fee just to come in and pick up stuff, right? Well, I mean, they're also delivering stuff, but at the same time, they're picking up stuff that's going to the rest of the planet. Well, again, tariffs don't help us. Tariffs hurt us because now it's China's not going to eat that. We got to pay that extra money. You know, they're going to ship. They're going to shipping costs are going to get passed on to the consumer.
Right.
You know, so all that stuff is just crazy. Pedro, what you got, my brother?
Yeah, they gotta. Yeah, like I was saying, they gotta figure something out. The small farmers are getting affected more, but as we have seen, um, their plan is to privatize all that industries and other things they could get onto. Um, in my opinion, I think that's what they were trying to do with Social Security. Why would they wouldn't like to privatize and corporate and make all these farms a corporate entity? You know what I mean? And they have more money coming in, and we know how corporate industries work. Sometimes they like to cut corners. We have seen proof with like Boeing um, and its issues and cutting corners, like getting parts out of dumpsters and putting them on planes. We've seen it in the meat packaging business when they and it was the same Trump that took these regulations off on his last term, and it affected during the Biden administration that all this lunch meat was tainted because of the change of the guidelines. People, the funding, and these corporations had to pay these people that oversee their operation, and those people that were there to make sure that operation was clean and up to code was getting paid by the same company. So, like you were saying back then, and they were loyal to that company that were giving them a check. And
Right.
and you know, by the positions that the people that are in that position and their background, all those in that administration are billionaires. All those hold more than 50 or 60% of the wealth in the country. So what are their bottom line is? Where can I make more money?
Well,
My
actually, I
opinion.
think they own. You know, the billionaires have more than that. I think they have more of like 70, 80% of the
Yeah.
wealth. You know what I'm
Yeah, I was
saying?
just lowballing it, you know what I
Right,
mean?
right. Lowballing it, but again, when you do away with, like you're talking about with the meat packing, processing plants, right? You had a government USDA inspector on site, right? He works for the government. He answers to the government, right? So now
Hmm.
to cut costs, they did away with that and started allowing Hormel and Tyson and Oscar Mayer and all these other companies to start policing themselves. Now that inspector that's working for the company is loyal to the company,
Hmm.
So I mean, it just doesn't make any sense, So I mean, again, all of this stuff is hurting the American people. It's a hurting, especially like with these farmers, man. I mean, you talking about farms that have been in families for generations, right? I mean,
Right.
some of these farms, they've owned this land for hundreds of years, right? So I mean, again, it just doesn't make any sense why you want to hurt, the heartland of America, right? These are the people that grow the stuff we're eating. These are the people we're depending on to grow stuff that's going to be safe for us to eat, right?
Right.
And so on and so forth. And at the same time, because we are the farmland of the world in essence, right? We now ship our goods, right? Our grain, our crops, around the world. And bottom line, now you're taking this away from them. You're not offering them any subsidies, nothing. You're just leaving them out there to fend for themselves. And I mean, it's not good. You're abandoning the American people when you do that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's really, really a sad situation that we're in right now. And I mean, farmers are really taking a hit. And, you know, do I believe in it being corporate farming? No, I don't. Because again, as Pedro's noted, as I've noted in the past, corporate's going to cut a corner. Whenever they can cut a corner or wherever they can save a dime, they're going to do that. You know what I'm saying? So, and whenever 9 times out of 10, whenever they do that, they're putting our safety at risk. So, on that note, we're beyond our little clock that we have here to make sure we can get all these articles in. So we're going to cut to a couple promos and then we'll get into the next one. Did you know Blind United offers free training in assistive technology? We call them interest groups. We offer training in JAWS, NVDA, iPhone, iPad, as well as Meta Ray-Bans. We also have groups like support group, cooking groups, and crafting groups. There are also groups for entertainment like movie night and RS game night. For more information about all the interest groups that we offer, just email us at info@blindunited.org or visit our Facebook group, Blind United Interest Group. We would love to have you be part of the Blind United crew.
You can go to customcane.com. That's custom with a K, guys. And what Custom Cane does is they sell cane and cane accessories. It's like Burger King. You can have it your way. You can get a pink cane, a blue cane, a rainbow cane, a Broncos cane, a Chargers cane, a cane with the Braille alphabet, a cane with your name on it. Whatever you want, whatever type of handle you want, whatever type of tip you want. If you want an aircraft aluminum cane, if you want an all-terrain cane, telescoping cane, any type of cane, Custom Cane has it.
Well, quick side note, I haven't said it, but I think I told Pedro, but I did receive my all-terrain cane from Custom Cane. I like it. It's very, very strong. I love the adjustability of it. I love that it's got my eyeball pattern on it. The only thing I don't like about it, and I guess I wish I'd have known, but I'm reaching out to Jimmy as we speak, and but bottom line, they gave me a roller tip, which is like a ball. I mean, it's not as big as a tennis ball, but bigger than a golf ball. I'm into more of a smaller roller tip, like a marshmallow. So anyway, I pulled it off to see if I could, swap out one of my other roller tips. And no, can't do it because I don't have any. All mine are hook and these are slide on. So I need to get a slide on marshmallow tip and then I'll be happy with it. So on that note, God First says good morning. And God First also said that tariffs do hurt us all. So anyway, everybody knows about the fires that we had here in California recently that tore up several neighborhoods all the way from Altadena all the way to the coastline. I can't even imagine how many, I don't have an exact number of millions or maybe possibly into the billions of dollars of property damage and stuff like that due to these fires. Well, our president decided that he was going to release some water from up north in Sacramento, which I don't think he actually had the right to do, but because the water management is being run under the Army Corps of Engineers. He ordered that this water to get released. So anyway, I want to let you guys hear the article and see what happened with that water.
Today on Coffee Time, the water that went nowhere, California's controversial reservoir release. In late January 2025, a decision made with a splashy announcement and a presidential tweet has turned into a simmering controversy. President Donald Trump issued an executive order directing the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to release approximately 2.2 billion gallons of water from two key California reservoirs, Lake Cahuilla and Lake Success, declaring it a bold move to help fight wildfires and support water needs in Southern California. But as the water surged out, it became clear the water wasn't going where it was promised. And the fallout, both environmental and political, is still unfolding. The official line versus the on-the-ground reality. The presidential order was framed as a lifeline for drought-stricken California. The idea? Release water from the Central Valley's reservoirs to help Southern California combat wildfires and ease water shortages. On the surface, it sounded like decisive action. Behind the scenes, however, a very different story was playing out. An internal memo obtained by the Washington Post revealed that Colonel Chad W. Caldwell, commander of the Army Corps' Sacramento district, knew before the release that the water would not reach its intended Southern California targets. Federal and state water experts had informed Caldwell that the infrastructure between the two regions didn't support direct water transfers and that there wasn't enough time for agencies to use the water effectively. Still, the order was carried out. Unintended consequences. Instead of flowing to Los Angeles or fire-prone hillsides, much of the released water spilled into local waterways, prompting flood concerns downstream. Local water officials scrambled to mitigate the risks, and the Army Corps ultimately scaled back the flow. Meanwhile, farmers in the San Joaquin Valley were left stunned. These reservoirs serve as critical irrigation sources during California's long, dry summers. Draining them in January, just before planting season, sparked fears about crop damage and lost yields for the months ahead. For many growers already facing tight margins, this wasn't just a policy blunder, it was a threat to their livelihoods. Politics in the pipeline? President Trump didn't shy away from taking credit. He posted videos of the water release online, hailing it as a victory for California farmers and a solution to the state's water issues. But that claim was quickly met with backlash. Water policy experts, state officials, and environmental leaders criticized the move as a political stunt, a headline-grabbing action with minimal planning, no consultation with California agencies, and zero long-term benefit. Critics noted that California's water systems are complex by design. Releasing billions of gallons of reservoir water without a coordinated delivery plan doesn't solve problems, it creates new ones, especially in a state already grappling with climate volatility and resource scarcity. Lessons from the spill. This incident brings several important questions to the forefront. Should federal agencies override state water authorities without coordination? How do we balance swift action with sustainable water policy? Is politicizing water, arguably one of our most vital resources, a dangerous precedent? California's water system is one of the most intricate in the world, engineered over decades to manage scarcity, storage, and demand. But even the most advanced systems can't fix a top-down directive made without input from the people who manage the water daily. What do you think? Was this executive order a bold move to get things done, or an ill-planned political show? Should presidential directives on state-level infrastructure be allowed without state coordination? And how should we balance urgency with strategy when it comes to managing natural resources? Now, back to the Coffee Time crew for their thoughts.
So, my opinion, it was a political stunt. I mean, again, this memo that was obtained by the Washington Post showed that, before the water was even released, they knew it was not going to reach its intended targets, which was Southern California, where, we could help to fight the fires and so on and so forth. And then the reservoirs where you release the water from, Again, that was their storage. That was what the farmers in Central California depended on to take care of their crops, throughout the summer, and now you're releasing that water before they even got a chance to plant their crops. So now they don't have no water to feed their crops. So, I mean, again, how are we going to grow crops in Central California this year, right? With no water. I just think it was really, really a bad move. I think it was a political stunt. I just think, on the surface, it looked good. But, once you really get into it, man, it hurt a lot of people. Number one, it didn't help the people that he claimed it was going to help. And it hurt a lot of other people. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know if anybody's ever been to Central California, but Central California is mostly all farmland. I mean, I hate to go here. Even the state has the state prison system has farms in Central California where they grow crops and stuff. So again, it was a bad move. I think it was just something to try to make himself look good, and because it was an executive order, bottom line, the fallout really all falls back on him, right? And now, hopefully, we'll be able to regroup some of this water. I mean, we didn't get a whole lot of snowfall. I mean, we're not necessarily out of that season yet, so hopefully we'll get enough snowfall because that's where most of that water comes from. When the snow melts, in the Tehachapi Mountains and the northern Sierra Mountains, when that snow melts, it flows down into those reservoirs. So hopefully, we'll be able to recoup some of that water, and then maybe hopefully, from further north up into Sacramento and stuff like that, we'll get even more water to where we can, release it from northern Cal and let it flow down into central Cal, to be able to, help these farmers and stuff out. So anyway, that's what I got on it. Carol, what you got?
Um, just dumb. It was just a dumb move. I mean, it's like you're putting the cart before the horse and you're using your power to say, okay, we believe that this is going to happen. Of course, I'm sure there were engineers and different people that told him, hey, it's not going to make it there. And like you said, I just hope that it doesn't have some severe consequences for the farmers because they need that water to grow crop. And again, like the story prior, don't want anybody to be hungry based on a dumb move. So hopefully, you all can recover there in Central California to where there'll be some crops to where people can have some for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, again, like they said in the memo, with proper planning, yes, that water could have made it to Southern California. But when you just do an order to, open up, drain these reservoirs now without proper planning, that water's not going to go where you want it to go. It's going to go where it can, and there's no way to put together a plan like that. It takes time to plan that out. So
Right. Right.
uh, he didn't care. He just wanted to make it look like he was doing something
Helping.
that the governor couldn't do. That was his intended goal. So,
Right.
what you got on it, Pedro?
Yeah, something similar to what you just said. Yeah, I feel that it's a dumb move. Plus, most likely, like Carol said, they advised him, but knowing and knowing from his past behavior, he likes to show out. So he was like, you know what? I'm gonna stick it to him. I can sign an executive order, and ain't nothing he can do, and I can just kind of like give him a slap in the face. I came in your state and did this, and you know what I mean. Be, but the proper channels was to collab with the state. to make it work, not to show out and be like, "Ah, look what I did," you know. And now you're hurting farmers. On top of that, farmers still have to deal with the tariffs that he has put, you know. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, again, and then that water was wasted because it went into the overflow, which in essence goes out into the ocean. So
Mm.
now you wasted, a valuable resource for, for California. I mean, I don't know. I just think, states. I believe states should be in charge of their resources, especially when talking about water management and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I just think that, that the federal government should not have carte blanche to just say, okay, well, release the water from this reservoir, that reservoir, whatever state it's in. I mean, I know we're talking about California right now, but I don't care. You know what I'm saying? If it's state resources, you're talking about states, are in charge of so much different stuff within their state. Why can't we be in charge of our own resources as well? You know what I'm saying? Why should the federal government be allowed to do what they're doing? It just, I don't know. I just think it's wrong.
Well, God forbid that something major happens, something almost like globally, almost like the C-19. But let's imagine chaos ended up happening in the streets, right?
Hmm.
The federal government is gonna want to take over all resources because they're gonna be. We need to keep it running, and the most important people is more government officials. You know, even
Mm.
though they should be provisions that they need to work together, not to just an executive order can do all that. But in my opinion, that's what I think they have it like that, or seems that they could do that, just in case of a large, let's say, an emergency that is countrywide or something.
Right,
Well, I know
right.
you were. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Kel.
No, I know you were saying that most of the water comes from the snow gathered from the mountains, but I mean, now that he's made a boo boo, not saying that he would admit it, can he bring water from somewhere else to restock these reservoirs so that when it is time for the farmers to release the water, it's some there?
Well, I mean, I don't know that they can. Again, I believe that the water management is set up, like the Sierra Nevadas, right?
Right,
On
right.
on the west side of the mountains, it all flows down into California. On the east side of the mountains, it flows down into Nevada, right?
Right,
So I
right.
think that they all have their own management on that level. You know what I'm
Okay,
saying?
right.
And I don't know that, I don't know what the water situation is in Nevada. I mean, can we divert some of that water from going out of the mountains instead of going to Nevada, come back into
Come back
California?
to
I don't
California.
know.
Right. Okay.
It'd be great. I mean, I do know that we do get water in Southern California. So, we get a lot of water from Northern California, but in Southern California, we actually get a lot of water from the Colorado River. We
Okay.
actually get water that comes all the way in from Utah, and
Mm.
stuff like that. So we do get water from other states here in Southern California. And it has to do with the mountain ranges that we have out here, right?
Right.
Uh, uh, I mean, going over what we call the grapevine out here, where we're going from Southern Cali into Central California, Carol, that mountain range is so high,
Mm.
okay, that the water coming from Northern California, it actually costs us so much money in electricity for pumps to push that water up over the top of those mountains.
What?
Yeah. Okay. And then because we don't have the infrastructure set up properly, we're losing that that energy resource being the power, right?
Right.
Because they don't have enough power generation set up on the downside of those mountains coming into Southern California, to where when that water flows through it, it could regenerate that electricity.
Okay.
You
It
follow
don't have
what I'm
enough
saying?
don't have enough energy
You
to,
know, so I
keep
mean,
pushing it.
it's not feasible for a lot of water to come from Northern California. It's more feasible for it to come from, in Southern California anyway, right? It's more
Right.
feasible for it to come from, you know, parts of the country where we're more level with, you know what I'm saying? If we didn't have that big old mountain range, or maybe if they were to just take some of this drilling technique that they have where they're building all these subways and stuff like that,
And go up underground, right?
go underground and create a water source that comes underground, so from go under those mountains. And so
But that's too much like you were saying about even putting power lines up underground. I mean, all the stuff makes great sense, but will they actually put it into fruition? Who knows?
Right. So
it's about money.
Exactly. So anyway, we're beyond that time mark again. So we'll get into a couple more promos and we'll get into our last article.
If you'd like to know more about Blind United, you can visit our website at blindunited.org. You can email us at info@blindunited.org. You can call us at 909-846-8825. You can follow us on Instagram at Blind United Interest Groups. You can follow us on X at Blind United 22. You can watch our YouTube channel, Blind United. You could join our Facebook group, Blind United Interest Groups, or you can follow our Facebook page, Blind United. Do you need to talk? Are you struggling with your mental health? Are you struggling with substance abuse issues? Call the Orange County NAMI Warm Line. That number is 877-910-9276. That number again is 877-910-9276.
All right. Well, God First basically agrees with me. It's about government control, and states should be in charge of their own resources. Tisha is saying something about Simply Wholesome hold the water from going to Arkansas or something. I'm not sure. Maybe you know something I don't know, Tisha. I'm not understanding what you're saying there, sweetheart. So, but anyway, those are the comments. And this last article is something we were talking about just prior to coming on the air, and it has to do with the IRS. They're constantly doing things to cut funding for the IRS, and it's allowing folks that have the money to fight the IRS to get away without paying their share of taxes, So anyway, let's play this and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Today on Coffee Time, IRS funding cuts, who benefits, who loses, and what's at stake for everyone. It's not every day that taxes make front page news, but when they do, it usually means something big is happening. And right now, the battle over IRS funding is shaping up to be one of the most significant and contentious fiscal debates in Washington. At the center of it all, the Inflation Reduction Act, a surge in IRS enforcement power, and the political backlash that followed. Let's dive into what's happening, what's been accomplished, and what could be lost. A quick recap: what the Inflation Reduction Act did for the IRS. When the Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, was passed in 2022, one of its lesser-known provisions gave a major boost to the IRS. Roughly $80 billion was allocated to modernize its systems and, crucially, strengthen enforcement, particularly against wealthy individuals and large corporations who haven't been paying their fair share. And the results were swift. By targeting individuals earning more than $1 million a year who owed at least $250,000 in tax debt, the IRS recovered over $1.3 billion in unpaid taxes. That's a massive return on investment, especially when you consider that nearly 80% of those targeted ended up paying up. That money didn't disappear into thin air. It helped fund vital public services like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. It's the kind of success story that doesn't always grab headlines, but should. The political whiplash. Enter the cuts. But just as momentum was building, the political winds shifted. In March 2024, as part of a debt ceiling agreement, congressional Republicans negotiated a $20 billion cut to IRS funding. And if that wasn't enough, another $20 billion was frozen in March 2025 through a continuing resolution signed by President Trump, cutting the original funding for IRS enforcement efforts in half. Why it matters? You might be thinking, so what? That's just government budgeting. But the impact of these cuts goes far beyond a line item on a spreadsheet. Here's what's at stake. 1. Fewer audits for the ultra-wealthy and big corporations. With less funding, the IRS expects to conduct 8,000 fewer audits of high-income individuals and corporations between 2025 and 2029. That's not a typo. These aren't audits for everyday taxpayers. They're for those with massive income and tax liabilities who often have the means to game the system. 2. A larger federal deficit. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that reduced enforcement will result in about $140 billion in lost revenue over the next decade. In other words, tax cheats could walk away with billions, while the rest of us pick up the slack. 3. Worsening customer service for everyday taxpayers. Less funding also means fewer resources to handle everyday needs like processing returns, answering phone calls, or updating outdated systems. That translates into longer wait times, delayed refunds, and more frustration for honest taxpayers trying to follow the rules. The debate, accountability versus overreach. This issue has sparked a fiery debate. Critics of the cuts argue that they mainly benefit the wealthiest Americans who can afford armies of accountants and lawyers. They say tax enforcement should focus on closing the gap between what's owed and what's paid, especially by those at the top. Supporters of the cuts, however, claim the expanded IRS powers could lead to government overreach and excessive auditing. They argue that reducing funding protects citizens from unnecessary scrutiny and keeps the government in check. So who's right? Well, it depends on whether you believe that holding the powerful accountable is worth the cost, or if you think the risk of government overreach outweighs the benefits of rigorous enforcement. The bigger picture. At its core, this issue isn't just about the IRS. It's about tax fairness and trust in government systems. If people see that high earners can skip out on their tax bills while everyone else has to play by the rules, it erodes public confidence. But if enforcement is well-targeted and fair, it reinforces the idea that no one, no matter how wealthy or well-connected, is above the law. What do you think? Should IRS funding be restored to ensure the wealthy pay what they owe? Or do you think scaling back enforcement is the right way to prevent government overreach? And how do we strike a balance between fairness, privacy, and fiscal responsibility? Now back to the Coffee Time crew for their thoughts.
So, myself personally, I believe that the funding should be restored. I believe that, not only the rich, but the wealthy corporations should be held accountable and they should pay their fair share. You look at what happened in New York, where the state went after Donald Trump behind his taxes and where he was, deflating the cost of the value, I should say, of his properties and stuff like that when it came time to file taxes. But then he was inflating the value of his properties when it came time to reaching out for loans and stuff like that. And if I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was forced to pay several $100 million to settle that claim with New York, because he was found liable, right? It's basically the same thing. It's just, Change that around. Now we're not talking about Donald Trump. Now we're talking about Elon Musk. We're talking about, anybody that has that money to have a whole army of attorneys that can they can afford to fight IRS, where without funding, IRS can't afford to fight them. So
Mm.
therefore now they get away with it while they turn around and they come after us. As an example, maybe I might owe a few dollars in taxes. They're going to come after me. Well, I'm only a few $1,000s, where these people own millions of dollars. Like they said, or minimum, they like they said, they were now able to go after people that made more than $1 million and owed a minimum of $250,000 in back taxes. I mean, that's going to bring them a lot more revenue than coming after someone, the average person that only owes a few $1,000s in back taxes. You know, I mean, they just get away with it so much. And this is what happens when you have billionaires basically buying their way in the government by donating, to a particular candidate's campaign, and then being awarded with a cabinet position and being able to influence policy and changes in policy that's going to benefit them and hurt everybody else. So I just think it's really, really sad. I think it's shady. And again, government, IRS should be allowed to go after everybody. Nobody is against, above the law. And I don't see where, they're stopping, overreach. I mean, bottom line, you got enough money to where if you're right and your books line up, then it's going to come out. But if not, then you got to pay. It's just that simple, So anyway, that's my take on it. And I just think the tax laws and procedures should be equal across the board. Just because you have money doesn't make you any better than the people that don't really have money. It's just that simple. So
I
anyway,
agree with you.
uh, you know,
I mean,
uh,
treat us all equal. I mean, I had to pay every time, and that's just because I had no dependents, and they thought I made too much, and they gave me a time limit on when to pay it, and if I didn't pay it within that time, there were penalties. So if someone makes 1 million or more, and they owe, I think that they should be held accountable just like me.
exactly, exactly. I mean, I've had to pay in the past. You know what I'm saying? I got put on a payment plan.
Hmm.
And if I skipped one payment, there were penalties
That's
behind that
right.
action. So again, what makes them any better than me or anybody else?
That's right.
Especially working class people.
That's
If
right.
anybody's going to get a break, I think it should be the working class. I mean, Pedro's talked about this before. Bottom line, you're making your money out of America, right?
Mm.
Off of Americans, right?
Right.
Why should you not pay your fair share of taxes, right? That's the system that we have in place, and that's the system that we all have to abide by.
Mhm. Yeah. And what happened to the pride of paying your taxes, you know?
That
Right.
part,
You
that part.
know? What happened to that? And it's from what I remember, it was like, prideful. I'm paying my taxes, I'll pay my dues, from the country that you could, the freedom, the country of freedom, the country of dreams, the country where you can build your business, the country where you could own your home, you know. So, you know, that pride. And, you know, it seems like that just goes out the window with these billionaires and millionaires.
It
Um,
does.
because they should, in a common sense world, they should be paying their fair share. They shouldn't be
Hmm.
paying no 13%. like they do if they paying taxes. They should be paying what a if they're single, they should be paying what a single person pays, and that's around what almost 28.9 to 37%.
Almost, yes.
Yeah,
Now, at
say
one point, I will go here. At one point in history, they paid more than 50%, right?
Right.
Maybe that was a bit excessive, you know, but again, there when you're making 500 times the average worker, I mean, I'm sorry, you should pay a higher tax rate because you're making more money,
Right.
yes.
but the millionaires, billionaires, and the corporations or whatever, what they don't like is the fact that a lot of these tax dollars go to pay for safety net programs like SNAP, and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm,
Oh well, we don't never need SNAP. Why should we have to pay into that? We don't never really need to take out a mortgage.
mm-hmm.
We can
But
pay cash, but at the
here's
same time, they do take out mortgages like Donald Trump, right? So we were talking about how he would inflate the value of his stuff to secure a loan. The only reason he was securing a loan was why? Because he wanted that tax write-off.
yeah,
Gotcha.
and for those corporations, right? If you're mad that you have to contribute to these programs, look in the mirror because it's your fault for not paying a livable wage. That's all I gotta say about that. Like, look at the mirror to these corporations. They're not paying a living wage. You
No.
know,
And they have more than one home. I mean, the average American, we just have one home. We don't have a summer home. We don't have a home
yeah.
across
But
somewhere else that we can travel to.
yes, and the dream of owning a home, it's leaving by generation. The you guys generation is the most generation that own the most homes. When it comes to millennials and Gen Zs, that window is closing big time. There
Yeah.
is more millennials not owning homes, leaving the home even in the late 20s because of the expensiveness and the competitive market. And now, a study was put out that just one person would have to work up to 3 to 4 jobs to maintain a home.
Yeah,
Right. And
yeah.
that's sad.
That is sad.
I mean, I know some folks I know. I mean, they're in the military, right? And they get moved around quite a bit. But one thing I like about what they do, they don't rent, they buy. Even if they're only going to be
Mm.
there 5, 6 years, whatever, until they get transferred, to a new post or, get orders where they have to go somewhere else, right? But
Right.
the fact is that the money that they're putting into that property, it doesn't lose value. It only increases in value. So when they sell it 5, 6, 7, 8 years later, they made a profit, right? And
Hmm.
now they're moving to another state. And what do? They buy another home there because now they're building wealth. They're not just
Mm.
throwing it to some corporation that owns, an apartment building or in today's world where corporate is trying to buy up all the homes. You're not living in a corporate owned home and not making any return on your money you know. So, I mean, property ownership is a very, very important step here in America. And this is one thing that, we definitely need to stay on top of. But again, uh, you know, everybody needs to pay their fair share of taxes. I don't care who you are. I don't care how much money you got. I don't care what your opinion is about how that tax money is being spent. Okay? That money is being spent to maintain America and their independence, right? It's being spent to take care of the American people, whether it's redoing the roads or whether it's feeding people that are less fortunate. It doesn't matter. it needs tax dollars are being spent the way tax dollars are being spent. I mean, can we do away with a lot of waste? Yeah. Okay. And I have nothing wrong with doing away with waste, right? And fraud and stuff like that. But again, everybody needs to pay their fair share. Now, once everybody is paying their fair share, guess what? We won't have a lot of the problems that we have right now, where they talking about, well, like with Social Security. Oh, Social Security getting ready to go broke. Well, if everybody paid their fair share in Social Security taxes, guess what? Social Security would be solvent. They wouldn't have no problem. They'd have enough money to last the next 150, 200 years. But because the rich people say, oh, well, I'm never going to file for Social Security, so why should I have to pay? Yada, yada, yada. Okay, what about the people that are paying into this? Now you want to take away a program that people have been paying into all of their life, that people are depending on for their retirement. You want to do away with it just because you don't need it. What about the 70 million people that are receiving Social Security right now? That's who matters in my book. So that's my take on that.
I agree with you, my brother.
Well, I'm going down here to hit this button, so. But anyway, you got anything to close out with, Pedro, before I hit this button?
No, that was all.
Okay, well, again, I'm sorry for getting political in this episode. If it offended anybody, I apologize. It's my opinion. And again, I'm not, this man is already in office. I'm not trying to determine what anybody votes for. I'm just trying to show what he's doing. He promised one thing and he's doing something else. So just pay attention, and then, hopefully we'll be able to survive and get past this.
Just one comment, and since you just threw something at me that came to my mind. How is these policies America first?
They're not. They're not. I mean, unless you want to consider, corporate millionaires, billionaires, as America. I mean, they are part of America, but they're just a small percentage of America. What about the larger percentage of Americans that these things are hurting? It's only benefiting the people up in the upper 1%, 5% at most, maybe a little deeper when you get into people that are only making basically $1 million a year, that percentage might go up. But again, it's still the majority of Americans are nowhere near those numbers, and they're being hurt every day. So on that note, we're going to keep doing what we can to try to keep everybody informed. And wow, we'll see what we got next tomorrow. And on that note, everybody enjoy your Wednesday. Don't forget to come hang out with us tonight and get the most out of your Meta Ray-Bans. As well as always, in closing, please like, subscribe, comment, share, subscribe, follow, all of whatever you can do on that platform. Again, I say it every day. It does help, whether you believe it or not. It really does help. So thank you all for joining us today, and we'll join you again tomorrow, same time. So everybody have a great day. We out.